So I am 2 weeks away from my surgery. I'm literally counting down the days, not feeling very great. My husband and I are supposed to be going on a trip to Europe, which I was really excited about booking at the time. And I had a conversation with him yesterday and just said, I can't imagine going out of town, being in a foreign country, being on a plane for that amount of time, feeling the way that I feel. I'm out of breath. I can barely walk. I kind of jokingly said that we'll have to bring a wheelchair to the trip, but I'm not really joking. Like, I can't walk the streets of London and walk the streets of France when I can't barely walk across the room to like go to the kitchen without having to sit down and catch my breath. Um, so it's just been awful. And one thing I want to mention too is that everyone that I talk to, they say, I know that you are convinced that it's your implants, but, I'm just afraid you're going to get them taken out and you're not going to feel better. Or they'll say, well, what does your doctor say? Did you talk to your surgeon who put the implants in? What does he say? And I'm telling you, like, no doctor that I have spoken to recognizes breast implant illness as a thing. I did not go back to the surgeon who did the implants because I just feel like, why in the world would somebody whose whole livelihood depends on putting in implants say, yeah, I think that that's what's making you sick and breast implant illness is real and all of that. Then they're admitting that, this thing can make you very sick and no one's disclosing it. And I think that they would be setting themselves up for potential lawsuits or losing their livelihood. And I just don't think it's recognized by most doctors. I mean, everybody just kind of, when I mention it, says, I don't think that that's a thing. But still, you have all this anecdotal evidence of all of these women who all have very similar symptoms and these autoimmune responses time after time after time, who are saying that they're sick and then they're feeling better after explanting their implants, and yet no one recognizes it. It's so crazy. Like, I feel like one day enough people will get sick and there will be enough um, exposure or light shed on this issue where all of a sudden people will recognize it. But until then, you just have to be your own advocate. So, I mean, everybody's concerned. They're trying to help, but they're making comments like, well, I know that you think it's your implants, but, what does the doctor say? And, have you been diagnosed with that? And I don't know why you think it's that. And maybe it's something else. And it's just not, I mean, of course it could be something else, but I just feel in my heart and in my soul that it's my implants that are causing me to feel this way because the symptoms are too similar to other women who have gone through the same thing. And I know that I have an autoimmune disease already with having celiac. I already know that my body's predisposed to have a hyperactive immune system, so it just makes sense to me. And if I get them taken out and I don't feel better, then I will explore other options. But until then, I'm just convinced that it's that. And I wish that the people around me were more supportive. I feel like they're being as supportive as they can be, but by making comments like, I'm afraid you're going to get them taken out and then you're not going to be happy and then you're going to be depressed about the way that you look. And I don't think that they realize that I feel like I'm dying and I literally could not care less about like, I just want to get healthy and have my life back. So yeah, we're supposed to be going. I tried to get my husband to cancel our trip. He really doesn't want to cancel the trip. We're not going to get a refund on anything. And he said that he'll be as supportive as we need to be as far as if I need to stay in the room. And I can't walk around as much, and we'll kind of work around that. So I'm terrified. I'm excited to take a trip. We've always wanted to go to Europe, but I'm also terrified about the way that I feel, and was really hoping that I could be doing it after the surgery, but it just didn't work out that way. So I'm going to unfortunately be sick during our vacation and focused on the explant and getting better. But I just can't wait to have my life back. I cannot wait to have my life back. And I fully, fully, fully hope and trust that after surgery I'll feel better, because this is not a life at all. Hey everyone, so I wanted to come on here really quickly. I haven't done like a proper video in a really long time. Not sure that this is actually going to be a proper video because I'm trying to throw everything together last minute. But a lot of you have been reaching out to me about my journey with breast implant illness, my explant, my symptoms. A lot of you are saying either you have implants and you feel like you might have some of the symptoms and you have more questions about that, or you know somebody that has implants and you're concerned that that may be the root of what they're going through. And the problem is that there's not a lot of awareness to this issue. For some of you, it's the first you'd even heard of breast implant illness, and it was the same for me. And then when you start looking, you start finding that thousands of women everywhere are struggling with this issue, and it's just not talked about. I think that's for a few different reasons. First of all, there's not a lot of research on breast implant illness. A lot of the research is actually funded by the makers of the implants. So if you're profiting from something, you're not really motivated to find an issue. And then the other thing is people are just embarrassed. They don't want to talk about getting implants in. They certainly don't want to talk about getting implants out. So they'll make up reasons why they have to be on leave for a couple of weeks. They'll say it's some other type of surgery rather than talking about the fact that they had implants and the implants made them sick. They're embarrassed, which to me, I understand that. I kind of felt like that at first for like a second. And then I realized that this is really a public health issue. And I spent a lot of money getting those suckers in and even more money getting those suckers out. And I struggled off and on for the last year. So I have to have a purpose, right? That's human nature. You have to find a meaning in your suffering. And so if I can help one person, which I've already helped several, thank God for that, it kind of gives some meaning to the suffering that I had. So if I went through all of that and couldn't share my story and couldn't help other women, then what was it for? So I feel like I'm really led to share my story because I feel like not only am I helping other people, but it helps me cope with the fact that I had to deal with that for a couple of years. And being able to save other people from struggling with that is incredible. And I feel like it's honestly, I need to do that, right? You could save lives, so why would you not? I'm sitting at home today in bed all day while my husband takes the kids to go get their hair cut. I've been super sick recently and have not been able to help a lot with parenting or cleaning the house or doing things with the kids. So he's taking them to swim lessons, taking them to get their hair cut, while I lay in bed, or I can't do very much. I just walked up the stairs maybe like 10 minutes ago, and I'm super short of breath, and my chest hurts, and I just feel like I need to rest after walking up the stairs. So it's just not good. It's not good. I'm not able to be the wife that I want to be. I'm not able to be the mom that I want to be. I am weak and just not feeling good every day. And I get winded really easily, and I can't really be involved in my kids' lives, and that is a huge problem. So I'm counting down the days till I can remove these toxic bags from my body and pray that my body can begin to heal itself, and wish that I would have known about this whenever I decided to put them in. No one told me that it could be an issue. The only issues that I was told about was you could have a capsular contraction where you have like scar tissue that builds. I think that was it. Yeah, I wasn't told about any of this other stuff that could happen. I'm watching this movie right now called The Bleeding Edge while I sit here and I'm not really able to move, just about the process of approving medical devices. And I read somewhere that implants were grandfathered in, so the FDA did not really have to like approve them because they were already being used before the FDA started regulating medical devices, something like that, that they were actually grandfathered in. And I do know that silicone was taken off of the market and put back on the market after some studies that were done, mostly funded by the creators of implants. So yeah, kind of crazy. But anyways, I still not feeling good and I'm hoping that I feel better soon. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about the backstory. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. 2 years ago, it was December 2017, I believe. I made the decision to get breast implants. I had two babies after breastfeeding for a little while and, just getting older and having kids. Let me tell you, it's mostly the kids. I thought, you know what, everything doesn't look the way that it used to look. I don't like the way that my clothes fit, so I made the decision to get breast implants, which a lot of people do, and I didn't know how many people had them until I got them, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I have them too, or oh yeah, I have them too. People I never suspected. Lots of women have them, which is fine. So I made the decision to have the surgery. I did my due diligence. Mostly. I talked to friends that had them. They said it's the best decision that they ever made. They love them. No regrets whatsoever. No issues whatsoever. I do have an autoimmune condition called celiac where if I eat wheat, my stomach swells. It's not pretty. So I did talk to my surgeon about it. Listen, I have an autoimmune disease. I have a family history of autoimmune disease. Is that going to be an issue with putting a foreign object in my body? He was like, no problem whatsoever. We do this all the time. People get knee implants and hip implants, and people put silicone in their body for different reasons. It's perfectly safe. Like, nobody has any issues, which later I found out is actually not true. And a lot of times when people are putting foreign things in their body, they have to take something to suppress their immune system so that their bodies don't fight it, such as an organ or something like that. So didn't know that. You just trust that your surgeon's going to tell you everything. And to be honest with you, I think that he answered my questions to the best of his knowledge. I don't think he was trying to be deceptive at all. I just think that it's not well known because it's not research, because the people who are doing the research are the people who are putting them in, and it's this whole vicious cycle. So you have to be your own advocate. So anyways, fast forward, I get them in. I absolutely love them. They're everything I ever dreamed of. I have, I'm getting the body that I always, wanted. I would go on Instagram and, see these models, and I'm like, yes, like this is what I've always wanted. No issues that I knew of like first year or so. Totally fine. Second year, it was around January the following year, like the year after. I'd had the implants for about a year. I caught the flu. No big deal, right? People get the flu. I personally don't get the flu shot. Think what you want about that. But I got the flu, and I've had the flu before. It sucks. You're sick for like a week, and then it goes away, and then you're fine. I caught the flu, but instead of getting better after a week, I was sick for about 3 to 4 weeks. I had the flu, which turned into bronchitis, which turned into pneumonia. It was like my body just couldn't fight off the flu. Did not think anything of it. It was just my first, that's weird moments, which later on I would find out there was a lot of like, that's weird moments throughout that year that I just totally didn't put everything together. So I had the flu, I had pneumonia, I had bronchitis, and then it was like a running joke. Like I was sick all the time. Like I was just sick with random stuff throughout the year. So I got sick with that, and I've always had these moments where I would I'm going 100 miles an hour usually, and I'll hit a wall, and I'll just be tired for a couple of days. Fast forward, later I found out I have Epstein-Barr virus, which like 95% of people have, which is crazy. That's, whenever people catch mono, whenever they're younger, if you catch mono, you have Epstein-Barr virus in your body. Even if you never felt yourself get sick, which was my case, I never knew I had mono or Epstein-Barr or anything like that, like 95% of the population has it. I found out later towards the end of my journey that I actually have Epstein-Barr and that it reactivated, and I'm pretty sure it was because of the implants. So anyways, from time to time I would get tired, but those times became like increasingly closer together, longer periods of time where I like couldn't get out of bed. So like normal me is 100 miles an hour doing a bunch of stuff and, maybe down for a couple of days, but like it was just becoming more frequent. But I was still feeling fine. On my good days, I was great. I've talked to a lot of people that said, I saw you, you seem fine, in March, and I probably was. I had a lot of good days. I was just randomly getting sick. So fast forward about a year and a half after I got my implants, it started to get worse and worse. So there was a period where I couldn't get out of bed. The room was spinning, my heart was pounding, lots of weird things happening. So I had Kaiser at the time. I kept going to the doctor and saying like, something is wrong. I don't know what it is, but something is wrong. I can't get out of bed. My brain is fuzzy. My heart is pounding. I'm pale. I noticed that like my eyelashes started falling out. I used to have to go get my eyebrows waxed all the time. Not my eyelashes, my eyebrows. I used to have to get my eyebrows waxed all the time. And suddenly I didn't need to do that anymore. They were like falling out. They started on the outside. Hair was falling out like in the shower. Super pale, super weak. I had like a lot of muscle weakness, and I'm like, something is wrong. So they kept doing the regular blood panel. Everything came back fine. They said, you're perfectly normal, you're fine, go home. Did not have a great experience with Kaiser. No offense to anybody that works there. I'm sure you're wonderful. My experience was terrible. They're like, you're fine, go home. So finally, I met a doctor at Kaiser who they were testing my iron, because I kept saying, I feel like my iron is low. I'm craving ice, I'm craving smells, like all this weird stuff that happened when I was pregnant, and my iron was low. And he checked my ferritin, which is actually the iron stored in your body, I believe, not in your blood, and that was super low. So that was like a 7 when it should be, I don't know, like between 50 and 150, something like that. So I was like, that's it. That is why I'm so sick. So I wound up having something called an iron infusion, where they hooked me up to a machine, put iron in my body for several hours, and I was able to get out of bed after that. And I thought that was the solution to all of my problems. Okay, so my husband and I had these tickets to go to London. I was actually in the hospital the day before our trip, and I actually tried to cancel the whole thing because I was so sick, and none of our trip was refundable. The plane tickets, the hotel rooms, the plays, like everything that we had booked was non-refundable. So here we are. We're on the trip, and in order to even like somewhat make it through, I've been on lots of anti-inflammatories just to like get through my day. And then today I just hit a wall. I think we've been here for 2 days, 3 days, and after a few hours I couldn't go any longer, and I slept in the hotel room while he explored London. So it's just been really hard to try to go through life where you feel like you can barely catch a breath just going to the bathroom. My heart starts racing. I feel like feverish and sweaty, and it's pretty terrible. So I love Europe, and I love the fact that we have this trip. I wish I could enjoy it to its fullest, but I'm really looking forward to my surgery in a week and a half, and just praying that I survive until then. And I know it sounds dramatic, but some days I feel like I won't. So just waiting for my surgery and hoping that I can, make it until then and somewhat enjoy this trip with my husband, and just hoping that I can get through this and get on the other side, and that after my surgery I won't ever have to live like this ever again until maybe when I'm like 90. So I had the iron infusion. I was able to get out of bed. I had a little bit more energy, but eventually I started going downhill again, where my hair was still falling out. I had a little bit of more color to my face, but I was just tired, and my muscles ached, and I was starting to get this really bad brain fog. And I think we all experience brain fog at some point, where we're trying to retrieve a name or we're trying to think of something, and we're like, why is my brain not firing on all cylinders? But this was like serious brain fog. And the only thing that I can use to compare it to is when you're in the throes of like a really bad flu, and like you just can't think straight. Like nothing is working properly. And I would have that, but I didn't have the flu. Like my brain just wasn't working. I would be driving in places that are super familiar to me and be like, where am I? What am I doing? Like, what's going on? Just, it felt like what I would imagine like Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that would feel like. It was very scary. And that continued off and on until I had the explant. It just got progressively worse and worse. Like the last 2 weeks was just really, really bad. So I just started having all of these symptoms. So I'm going to go through the symptoms of breast implant illness, some of the symptoms, and let you know kind of what I had and what it looked like. So for those of you who think that you may be struggling with it, or you know somebody that you think may be struggling with it, this is helpful. The problem is it actually mimics a lot of other diseases. I actually went and got tested for Lyme's disease recently, Lyme's, because the symptoms are so similar, and I was negative on Lyme disease, but a lot of these symptoms mimic that. So here are the symptoms that people feel with breast implant illness, some of them. Fatigue or chronic fatigue. Mine was really, really bad. Some days I could not get out of bed at all on my bad days. Cognitive dysfunction, brain fog. I had that and it got progressively worse and worse. I talked to somebody else that struggled with it, and she got to the point where she couldn't remember how to spell the word was. Like, she was just like, her brain wasn't working. Difficulty concentrating, memory loss. I had that really bad. I'm already scatterbrained. I'm already going 100 miles an hour, but this was like next level. Muscle pain and weakness and joint pain. So I always ran the Peachtree every year with my husband. And I wouldn't say every year, but most of the time. And this year, this past year or two, I was just like, I can't do it. My knees, the last 10K that I ran, I almost couldn't finish because my knees were swelling and hurting so bad. I thought somebody was gonna have to like pick me up. Like, I couldn't even walk to the end of the race. It was horrible. So I have horrible knee pain. I've talked to some people who have been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis after getting the implants. So joint pain is a huge sign of breast implant illness. Hair loss, dry skin. I never had dry skin before. I would only have to wear lotion on my hands because, you know, I wash my hands 500 times a day, but on my body, I never had an issue. But I remember even when I was going for my explant surgery, my surgeon was like, your skin is really dry. Is it always like this? I'm like, no, it's the implants. So that, and I'll tell you what's improved after. Premature aging. So I'll show you a picture of kind of like some before and afters. It's just you get these bags under your eyes and you just look 10, 20 years older. Okay, so I've been waiting. Oh, I just spilled my coffee everywhere. It's fine. I've been waiting to shoot this video where I could like put on some makeup and look decent, and because I know that I'll probably be sharing it later, but I just haven't felt good, and I need to shoot this video while I still can. So I wanted to shoot a video while I have my breast implants in, because I tend to be one of those people that if I'm feeling bad, as soon as I start feeling good, I forget how I was feeling. So I wanted to shoot this video in the moment while I'm feeling everything and while I'm like in it. And I'm in it right now. So you can kind of see I was at the doctor recently getting blood work done. I feel like I'm always at the doctor's office. About the beginning part of this year, my health started just going downhill. I was really susceptible to getting infections. Just for reference, I got breast implants 2 years ago. Was fine the whole first year. Everything looks fine with them. Everything looks normal with them. But about the beginning of this year, I came down with a flu and I couldn't shake it. I was just like always sick. It's like I had no immune system to keep me from getting sick. So that was like the beginning of this year. I'm like, gosh, I just can't shake all these sicknesses. And then as the year progressed, I started having like heart palpitations, like sharp shooting pains. Like if I breathe in, just like pain through my breast or through my chest, I guess. Just feeling sharp shooting pains and just fatigue and weakness. There's some days where I'll work for 2 hours and then I have to like nap for hours, which is not like me at all. And the way that I keep describing it to my husband is feeling like you have the flu, only without the sickness, having just like weakness and fatigue. The brain fog is awful. Like I can't think straight. Just like taking stuff out of the refrigerator and going to put it into the pantry, and people will talk to me and I don't understand what they're saying. It's like I can't process information. It's just like a fog over my head. I just can't think. I mean, it's scary. Like even just driving down the road, being in the car with my kids, I'm like, I can't even think straight right now. I don't feel safe half the time. Leaving the front door open and walking away, leaving things on the oven and walking away. It's scary. Attracting all of these infections. I do have an autoimmune disease called celiac, and autoimmune disease does run in my family, so I would not be surprised if my body is just trying to fight these implants. So, oh, my hair, like weird things with my hair. Like my hair's been falling out. It just doesn't look like, it's just like dull and lifeless. And I've gone to get it dyed a few times and it's like not holding the dye. It's weird. Oh, and another thing, I've read some girls have like alcohol intolerance. The last couple of times I've tried to drink, and I'm talking like 2 drinks, I wind up like throwing up violently. It's almost like my body can't handle the alcohol, which is weird. It's almost like maybe my liver is like trying to process all the toxins from the breast implants and can't handle anything else. I don't know. Night sweats, I'm definitely having that. Problems regulating my temperature. I'll be super hot and super cold. So that's been a little bit crazy. I'm trying to think of anything else I've been having. Just like random pains, but it's mostly just fatigue and weakness and feeling like a 90-year-old trapped in a 36-year-old woman's body. So I just completely stopped going to the gym. Work has really suffered. Not really. I've suffered at work, but I have a really great team. So my business has been great because on the days that I'm like bedridden, can't get out of bed, can't even like breathe or talk to anyone, I have great partners that I work with that have been able to like pick up the slack, but I could 100% see how people would lose their jobs from being this sick because it's like a chronic, debilitating illness. It's really bad. So I'm explanting at the end of this month. So I will do like a contrast video of like before and after, and I hope to God my after video is me feeling mostly recovered, fully recovered, healed, because this is no way to live. So anyways, I wanted to shoot this while I'm in it so that I don't forget it, and I will shoot another one after explant and praying that I don't feel sick all the time after that. Okay, so weight problems is one of the symptoms. There are many days that I eat once a day. Sometimes I'll just have a salad because I'm going 100 miles an hour. And in the 2 years that I had the implants, I gained about 25 pounds or so, and it did not matter how much I worked out, and I stopped being able to work out towards the end because I was too weak, or what I ate. I just could not lose the weight. So even if I went a whole week and watched my calories and all of that, like I would gain weight that week. It was just, I just kept putting on weight, and I'm hoping that that's something that will go away over time. Inflammation. So you can see in my face, slowly the inflammation, it feels like, is going down. So I'll just show you kind of like before and after pictures of my face. Even in the videos that I'll kind of cut to throughout this, you can just see that my face is like super puffy. I had inflammation really, really bad. Poor sleep and insomnia. Didn't have that. I actually slept really well. Dry eyes, declines in vision, vision disturbances. I know some people will get floaters in their eyes from the implants. I just had blurry vision. I would think some days I had forgotten to put my contacts in because my vision was bad, and I would realize I was wearing my contacts. It was just my vision was really bad for whatever reason. Hypothyroid symptoms. I had Kaiser test my thyroid 3 different times because I really thought that it was my thyroid that was causing all of my issues, because all of my symptoms matched hypothyroidism, but my thyroid levels came in normal. They were like slightly above optimal levels, but they were still within the normal levels, but the symptoms kind of mirror hypothyroidism. Parathyroid problems, estrogen, progesterone imbalance. I still haven't done my test for those hormone levels, so I'm not sure if those were off balance or not. Diminishing hormones, early menopause, hysterectomy, low libido, slow healing of cuts, scrapes, and easy bruising. I would bruise very easily, and slow healing is something that I've heard a lot of people have. Even now, I had fillings replaced maybe a month ago on this side of my face, and I can't chew on this side of my mouth because it still hasn't healed. Like that nerve is inflamed. So not going back to the dentist anytime soon after that. Throat clearing, cough, difficulty swallowing. So I've heard of people, they feel like they have like a lump in their throat and they can't swallow. I didn't have that, but I've heard that's very common. a metallic taste in your mouth. Vertigo was a big one. So some people have this really intensely. I didn't have it till the end, and I would have like these dizzy spells where I would be laying down and I would feel like the room was spinning, kind of like if you're super drunk. It just felt like everything was like spinning, and it freaked me out. Um, Gastro and digestive issues. I've always had issues with digestion. I was diagnosed with leaky gut. I have celiac disease. My intestines are not great to begin with, so who knows if that's any different from that. IBS, gastritis, pancreatitis. I've actually had pancreatitis since before having implants. So that's something that was pre-existing anyway. Fevers, night sweats, intolerance to heat and cold. This I had really bad. So I had really poor temperature regulation. I still have some of that, where I would be really cold and then really hot. And my night sweats were really bad, where I would just wake up drenched, sweating. And this got really bad if I would drink at night too. Like if I had 2 glasses of wine, I would wake up just drenched in sweat. I would sweat anyways, but that would make it worse. So that's one of the issues. New and persistent bacterial and viral infections. So like I said, I got anything and everything that you can imagine. And what I heard is that whenever your body is trying to fight the implants, it's kind of like you've got a bouncer at the front door and they're fighting like somebody at the front door, and everybody's like sneaking into the back. So you've got like Epstein-Barr reactivating and colds and flus and things like that. So you just are more susceptible. Okay, next one is slow clearing of common colds and flus, which definitely happened to me. Fungal infections, yeast infections, candida, UTI infections, skin rashes. I did have a rash that would show up every now and then, like right under my chest. And that was another like, that's weird. And I just assumed that it was, I don't know what I assumed. It was just I was sweating or something. But I just had this rash, this weird like bumpy rash that would show up right under where my implants were, and it would come and go. And I just said, that's weird. And that was that. I did get a UTI infection towards the end of everything. And I mean, I just got everything you could possibly imagine. Ear ringing. So I did have that as a symptom occasionally. Where I would just hear this like ringing in my ears for no reason. Sudden food intolerance and allergy. I didn't notice this, but I've heard of other women who were perfectly fine eating bread, dairy, eggs, things like that. And it gets to the point where they can't eat anything because their body reacts to everything. And they'll test positive for all these food allergies, but it's really like something that they develop after getting implants. Headaches, migraines, ocular migraines. I did get headaches occasionally, but that wasn't a huge symptom that I had. Slow muscle recovery after activity. So my muscles got so weak so quickly that I didn't really have a chance. Like people would say I work out and then I can't recover. I couldn't even work out. Like my muscles would be sore from walking up the stairs. I would walk up the stairs actually and take 10 minutes to catch my breath, and then my muscles would hurt like I ran a marathon. It was like I was a 90-year-old woman. Honestly. Heart palpitations was one of my biggest symptoms and one of the scariest. So my heart would start beating out of my chest, and I would feel dizzy. My heart would start beating out of my chest. I would be laying in the bed, like feeling like I was gonna die. I would have this chest pain. I would have this, like I would breathe in and get this sharp stabbing pain on the right side. I thought I was having a heart attack. Like it feels like a heart attack. And those were the times that I would go to the hospital. I would go to the hospital assuming that my blood pressure would be really low, but my blood pressure would actually be going up, I guess, because of the pain. But my heart rate was low. And it would start dipping, like low heart rate, and my blood pressure went up at one point to like 150, which my normal blood pressure is usually about 120 or so. And the nurses were like, oh, it's just because you're having anxiety. And I would be sitting there. I was too sick to be anxious. I was just like laying in the bed and my heart rate was going up, and my heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. And they would give me an EKG, and the EKG would say everything was fine. But my heart was literally like pounding. I have anxiety. I've had anxiety my whole life. I know exactly what a panic attack feels like. I've had several of them. This was different. This was like a physical something is going on. None of that since explanting, by the way. Swollen lymph nodes. I never had swollen lymph nodes, even with the reactivated Epstein-Barr, which is interesting. Bouts of dehydration for no reason. So I was dehydrated all the time. I had dry skin. Frequent urination. So this is another, that's weird. It's funny because my husband and I would joke about me being an old lady because I would have to go to the bathroom like 6-7 times in the middle of the night. My sleep was not so great because I was getting up constantly because I had to pee all night long. I couldn't make it through a movie without having to go to the bathroom like 4 or 5 times in the time that we were watching a movie, and that has since gone since explanting. Which is great. I'll tell you kind of everything has gone except for a few things, and I'll cover that at the end. So frequent urination, that was oh, that's weird. I guess that's old age, or, maybe it's from having kids or something like that, but it's gone after explant. So apparently that was related. Numbness, tingling sensation in the upper and lower limbs. So I would have tingling in my hands and feet. Cold and discolored hands and limbs. So I've seen people that have that disease. Is it Raynaud's disease? I don't know. Where like one finger would be white or one fingertip would be white. So that's something that some people experience. General chest discomfort. I had that, and at the end, it felt like there was an elephant sitting on my chest. Like I couldn't breathe. It was a weight on my chest, like a stack of books on my chest. And the only thing that made it go away was steroids. So I think it was just inflammation all in my chest, but it just felt so heavy. It felt like I couldn't breathe. It was so uncomfortable. It was horrible. Shortness of breath. That was something that I still have, where if I go up the stairs, like it's hard for me to breathe, or if I talk for too long, it's hard for me to breathe. It is very much improved, but it's still there. And we're 3 weeks post-op. Pain and burning sensation around the implant or under the underarm. Liver and kidney dysfunction. My liver enzymes and kidney enzymes were a little bit funky, but they were like outside of optimal range, but not abnormal. So if you go to a doctor versus a functional practitioner, a doctor is going to look for anything that's way outside of normal, like critical, versus like a functional doctor is going to look at your numbers and say, this is optimal. This is where your body's functioning properly. This is outside of the optimal range, not necessarily abnormal according to like your standard medical doctor, but something's wrong. Your body's not functioning at its optimal, whatever. And then a critical is where you're outside of the average, you're outside of the normal labs, and like some big measure action needs to be taken. So a functional doctor is going to look at, are you outside of those optimal ranges? And my kidney and liver enzymes were. Let's see, toxic shock symptoms, gallbladder problems, cramping, anxiety, depression, panic attacks. I had that before, but it was worse with the implants, like significantly worse. I had to go back on anxiety medication, which I hadn't had to take in a long time. Feeling like you're dying. That was my number one symptom towards the end. I felt like I would be laying in bed and my body would just feel heavy and my head would be cloudy. And I felt like this is how it must feel for someone who's terminally ill, who's in the process of dying. Like it felt like I am dying. Not like in my head, like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm dying, but just like a soft, like acceptance and weakness of like the life is leaving my body. It really does something to your head. But you really feel like you are slowly fading away and dying. Leaky gut, IBS and SIBO. I was diagnosed with leaky gut. Symptoms or a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. Symptoms or diagnosis of Lyme disease. So my symptoms did match a lot of the symptoms of Lyme disease. So I did get tested for that, actually after explanting, just to see, and that was negative, but it did match a lot of the symptoms of Lyme disease. I don't know why I always want to put an S, Lyme's. at the end of that. Symptoms or diagnosis of Epstein-Barr virus. So I did have the symptoms, and it actually did reactivate in my body. Symptoms or diagnosis of autoimmune diseases such as Raynaud's disease. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's with the hands turning white, I believe. Hashimoto's. I did start developing thyroid antibodies, not enough to be diagnosed with Hashimoto's, but the antibodies are starting to form. Rheumatoid arthritis, like I said, is a big one. Scleroderma, I'm not sure what that one is. Lupus, Sjogren's syndrome. I'm not going to pronounce any of this right. I think Sjogren's is where you have like the dry eyes, which I did have dry eyes and dry skin and all of that. Non-specific connective tissue disease, multiple sclerosis, ACL lymphoma, or diagnosis of cancer. So those are some of the symptoms. Those are some of the symptoms that I had. So I had most of the symptoms on the list, and it's very confusing for people because so many of those are things that we experience, but sometimes it's to another level, and it's just a very broad, generalized list of symptoms. So I talked a little bit about the symptoms that I experienced while having breast implants and how they got worse. The worst ones I had were, especially towards the end, were the heart palpitations, shortness of breath, feeling like I was dying. Like towards the end, there was one day where my mom and my sister came over. We were supposed to be going to a funeral that night. And I remember going to the bathroom saying, let me just go to the bathroom before we leave, and walking from the bathroom to my car, which is like right next to each other, and just the walk to the car made me really short of breath, and I was just sitting there like breathing heavily. My heart started doing that thing where it's pounding out of control, and I started feeling dizzy, and I said, I can't do this. I need to go to the hospital like right now. And I felt so awful because I should be there at the funeral supporting my family, but I just couldn't. I felt like I was about to die. So my sister went with me to the hospital. My mom went to the funeral, and you know, it was one of those situations where my heart's pounding out of control. The doctor comes in. They had seen me several times before with the same symptoms, and she really just blew me off. She said, oh yeah, you're here again. I see in your chart you have anxiety. We don't need to run any of those tests that you're asking for. You know, we'll run a regular blood panel, but I think you're fine. And then she left. And my sister just stood and looked at me with like her eyes big, and she was like, I cannot believe somebody would treat you this way. And I'm like, this is what happens. Everybody thinks I'm a crazy person, like a hypochondriac, or it's anxiety. People are treating me like I'm crazy. Doctors are treating me like I'm crazy. I was very unimpressed with Kaiser. And I'm sure that a lot of people experience this with doctors. In general, I'm not trying to pick on Kaiser. This was just my experience with them. And they ran the blood count, and they said everything's perfectly normal. And I'll show you my numbers from that hospital visit versus like my visits before, but you can see my white blood cell count was way off from what it was before. So all my numbers were like, you know, rising and plummeting and all of that based on what they were before. But they had me leave and said, you're fine. We're going to give you some ibuprofen for the pain. And they sent me on my way. And I literally thought, I'm dying, and they're going to send me home, and I'm going to die from this. So that wasn't fun. So heart palpitations, muscle weakness, fatigue, couldn't get out of bed. And like I said, I had good days and I had bad days. And on my good days in the beginning, I was perfectly normal. On my good days towards the end, I could work for a few hours and be fine, and then I would sleep for the rest of the day. And for the last couple of weeks, it was really bad. Like everything just went downhill really quickly. I felt like I was just plummeting. My health was plummeting. My brain fog was increasing like crazy. My fatigue was increasing like crazy. Heart palpitations were increasing in frequency and severity, and everything was just going to crap really quickly. So, and for those of you who said, I saw you and I feel bad that, you know, I was around you when you were sick, you probably weren't. Because on the days that I wasn't feeling good, I was in bed, right? So I was unavailable. You probably talked to my husband, or you talked to my assistant if I was working with you, because I just couldn't get out of bed. So I feel like it's really sad because I love my job so much that on the days that I felt good, I poured everything into work because I wanted to make sure that my clients got the best experience and that they were well taken care of. And I've been doing my job for so long that I was able to still perform and still do a really good job, even in those little pockets where I wasn't feeling bad. But I didn't have anything left for my family. So I would use a little bit of energy that I had, pour it into work, and then my husband would come home and he was the one that had to do everything. Towards the end, he had to pick up the kids from school. I would be laying in bed. He would do the bath time. He would do the stories. He would put them in bed, and I would literally be laying there and the kids would give me kisses, and it was always like, mommy's sick, mommy's sick. And that was really sad because my poor kids, like I can't help my husband. I can't be there with my kids. I can't do story time. I was literally just laying in bed every night at the end, which was awful. And it's so weird how something like this changes your perspective. I remember I used to go on Instagram and I would see these women with these perfect bodies and these perfect boobs. And I would say, oh, I wish I could have that. And then I had that and I got really sick. And I remember being in bed and not able to get out of bed because I was so unhealthy and like scrolling through Instagram, and I would see like people playing with their kids, and like we went to the park or we went to go see Santa or whatever the case may be, and my jealousy shifted, right? I was no longer looking at people with these bodies and all of that. I was looking at people out in the world doing things and being jealous of their energy, being jealous of their health, being jealous of the fact that you are able to get up out of bed and take your kid to the park and play with them. That is something that I could not do in the end. I could barely, I couldn't put on makeup or get dressed some days. There was one day where I had a closing and I just had no energy that day. So I got out of bed, got dressed, did my makeup really poorly, and took an Uber to go get my hair, like a blow dry bar to get my hair done, took an Uber to closing, stayed there for the closing, took an Uber home because I couldn't drive, and then I slept for the rest of the day. So towards the end, instead of being jealous of people's bodies, I was jealous of their health. And it totally has changed my whole perspective. Being healthy is the most important thing in the world to me right now. Having energy, having health, being able to be a functioning member of society, being able to do things for my kids, like that is the most important thing. I know for some women, having an explant is really hard for them mentally. Mentally, that's their whole body image and they're worried about how they'll look and all of that. At the end, my health, I'm not going to exchange that for having boobs. Never in a million years, because there was nothing attractive about being stuck in bed with your hair falling out and being pale and not being able to do anything and have, like, what good are boobs at that point, really? Okay, so I'm going to talk about the symptoms that I still have today and how I found out about breast implant illness in the first place. So out of all of the symptoms that I've had, heart palpitations, all that craziness, all of that is gone. Like I am not, going to the top of the stairs and wheezing for 10 minutes. I'm still short of breath, but it would take me 10 to 15 minutes to catch my breath just walking across the room. That is gone. The chest pain, the chest pressure, all of that is gone. Brain fog, mostly gone. I feel like there was like a veil that was like lifted, veil that was lifted after my explant. I was like, oh my gosh, my brain's like starting to fire again. So energy levels are better. Like I said, I did have an reactivated Epstein-Barr virus. If you've never been tested for that, you should be tested for that, because there are some links between Epstein-Barr and autoimmune diseases. Some people are speculating that what we think is like an autoimmune disease where your body is fighting itself, like rheumatoid arthritis and things like that, is actually Epstein-Barr being reactivated, and your body is fighting the Epstein-Barr, and it's actually damaging some of your joints and cells and things like that in the process. I don't know if that's true or not, but if you're feeling like you have rheumatoid arthritis or some of these connective tissue diseases, then it might be worth it to look and see if you have Epstein-Barr, which you probably do because most people do, and if it is actually reactivated, which mine did. So I have some fatigue left over. I had really great energy up until yesterday. And then yesterday I was just like so tired, couldn't get out of bed. But again, I have Epstein-Barr that's reactivated in my body. I'm 3 weeks post-surgery and going 100 miles an hour. So obviously I'm going to be a little bit tired. But before yesterday, it was just like 100 miles an hour, back to work, back to, you know, getting up and getting dressed and doing things. And that was something that I could not do before. So really I would just say shortness of breath and then the fatigue that I had yesterday, which I haven't had for 3 weeks, are the only symptoms that I still have. Maybe a tiny bit of brain fog, but nothing compared to what I had. Everything else is gone. As soon as I explanted, everything else was gone. So that's pretty cool. And now let's talk about how I found out about breast implant illness. So I'm trying to think of where I first heard about it. I think I was kind of Googling some of the symptoms that I had, and maybe it popped up and I posted something on my stories about like, I think I might be having an issue with this. And somebody private messaged me and said, hey, you've got to talk to my friend. You know, she experienced all of this. She had her breast implants removed and she was fine. And then a couple of people sent me a link to a Facebook group called Breast Implant Illness and Healing by Nicole, something like that. I'll put it on the screen. Which oddly enough, Facebook is hiding that page from people. So now I like try to send people to that page, and if you search it, you can't find it, which my conspiracy theorist mind is like, that's weird. That's weird. But if you're looking for that group and you want to be a part of that group, let me know and I can add you to that group because I'm a member, so I can add people, but for some reason it's not showing up in people's searches. So anyway, somebody said, hey, talk to my friend, look in this group. So I talked to the friends, I looked in the group, and it was like my story. And I was like crying, like reading all this, like I can't get out of bed, my hair's falling out, I'm having these weird symptoms. My periods are weird. I'm getting these ovarian cysts I never had before. That was another fun thing that I got. I got a really bad ovarian cyst that ruptured and actually sent me to the hospital. And I was like, that's weird. Never had that happen to me before. So people were just, it was like my story over and over and over again. Towards the end, when I was like basically in bed all day, every day, I would just sit there like glued to the group, just reading the stories. I had lost hope in life. It was bad the last 2 weeks, you guys. So I would just sit there and read the stories and just read the success stories. And my husband's like, you're still on that group? And I'm like, it is the only thing that gets me through. It is the only hope I have that maybe I can get better. So I was reading all the stories and I'm excited, right? So I've been doing nothing but like reading research papers, looking into everything, kind of finding out the history of the research that was done on implants. Fun fact, some of the implant companies, when they were doing their studies, excluded women who either had an autoimmune disease or had a family history of autoimmune disease. So don't you think that that's a big population that wasn't counted in the study? Some of the companies would drop people when they started getting sick. There's a lot of really weird things that happen whenever they did the studies on implants that makes you wonder how they ever got approved by the FDA. If you ever want to watch a really interesting documentary, watch The Bleeding Edge on Netflix just to see how things get approved by the FDA. A lot of us just think that, you know, if we're told that it's safe by the FDA, if we're told that something's safe by our doctors, by our surgeons, that it's safe. But apparently, there's a lot of women who are struggling and everybody's still saying that things are safe. Although I think that the FDA, now that all these women are coming together and kind of lobbying, they're starting to pay attention. I did read somewhere that they were going to put a black box label on implants, so that would be a huge win. But I think it's just something that's really not talked about, and the public is not protected the way that we think that we're protected when it comes to these things, and you have to be your own advocate, which I keep saying all the time. And in this case, I really wasn't my own advocate. I listened to a couple of friends and who didn't have issues, because not everybody does, and I listened to my surgeon.
And that was the other thing whenever I was talking about getting the implants out. So I had done all of this research, all of, reading through actual studies that were done by the implant companies, talking to people, getting anecdotal evidence of like, well, what was your experience? Well, then what happened? And after you explanted, what happened? After reading all of this, I was like convinced it was my implants. So I talked to my husband about it, and he's like, what did the doctor say? And I'm like, the doctors are all liars and no one believes in this, and they don't. And I would tell doctors when I was sick, well, I have implants, can that affect anything? And they're like, no, you're fine. Implants, there's nothing unsafe about implants. And I remember talking to my mom about it and saying, like, I found the solution. I know what this is. And she said, you know what? I think you need to talk to your doctor. I think if you get them taken out, you're going to be really unhappy. And that is so hard whenever you are like, there's no way for you to know for sure. You're struggling with the decision. You're about to spend all of this money. My explant was almost $10,000. It's a lot of money. So instead of driving a new car, I had the surgery. You're already struggling because there's no way to test for it. You're not really sure that that's really what's wrong with you. You're really hoping, and the people around you are not supportive because there really is no doctor or very few studies that are supporting what you think. So this was just a total leap of faith. I went and had the surgery done. I was so sick. I was like, if there's a 10% chance that I could be better from this, so be it. Like, I will take it if there's a 10% chance, because I feel like I'm dying. So I had the explant surgery, couldn't really tell how I was feeling like a few days later because I was like all drugged up. And by week 1 or week 2, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm back. My energy's back. My brain's back. I can go 100 miles an hour, which I probably shouldn't have done after surgery. And it was like all of these symptoms just like magically disappeared.
Hey everyone. So I wanted to come on here to give everybody an update on how things are going. I've gotten so many calls and text messages and all of that, and I appreciate you guys so much. And one of the best things that I've gotten a lot of is people just sharing stories with me, either that they've gone through the same thing or that they know friends of theirs who've gone through the same thing, and really recently, like a lot of people know others that have had to have the same surgery that I had this year. So I don't know if it's just that there's more awareness or if, the product has changed, but it really helps me not to feel alone in this journey. So I appreciate that so, so much.
But I really feel for those women who are struggling because there's no test. There's no way for, you to think, is it my implants? Let's do a blood test. Let's figure it out. And if it is, then I will take them out. It is just, you hope and you pray, and it's a wish and a prayer that it's actually going to fix you. And thank God that was the solution for me. So anyways, I'm using this platform to tell you kind of my story, what happened. I am 3 weeks post-op, almost 3 weeks post-op. I feel amazing. Like I said yesterday, I was tired. I was going 100 miles an hour, staying up until midnight because I had so much energy in the beginning. But I think my body's like hitting a wall and saying, you need to heal. So yesterday I was really tired. Today I'm a little tired, but starting to get my energy back. But I am feeling like a whole new person. I have zero regrets about the surgery. And I am just trying to take my time out of my day to answer any questions that anybody has, to, be the mouthpiece that, hopefully will save some other women from going through what I went through. Just a little bit of history. I had my implants for 2 years. I started getting sick off and on about a year after. Did not really start going downhill until about a year and a half after implants. And that was still like off and on and weird symptoms and not linking everything together. And then just like completely went downhill right at almost 2 years. It is not the same story for everyone. Some people have them for 10 years and have no issues, and then they appear out of nowhere. Other people will just have little like that's weird moments. I've talked to people who have rheumatoid arthritis, who are diagnosed with glaucoma, who are diagnosed with like all these weird symptoms, Hashimoto's, they get rashes all over their body, psoriasis, migraines, chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that, and have no idea that it's their implants. And these people are like young, you know, between 20, 30, 40, even at 50 years old, you should not be falling apart, right? Like our bodies should not be giving out at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. We shouldn't be like having knee problems and not able to go up the stairs and all of that stuff. So if you're having a lot of that's weird moments, and I never had that before, and doctors aren't finding anything, and you're thinking maybe it's just age, and you're like 37, you should not be having issues like that at 37, so, or at 47. So if anybody has any questions about this, just let me know. But I've gotten so many DMs. I love you guys so much. So thank you for checking in on me. I wanted to make this video to kind of address everything and talk about everything. So if you have any questions at all, let me know. I will put a picture of the Facebook page up here. If you can't find it on Facebook because it's still hidden, let me know and I can add you. I'll share the list of symptoms. And then if you go to, I think it's like healingbreastimplantillness.com. Yeah, healingbreastimplantillness.com. There's a lot of information on that website too. So thank you so much for watching my video. And I will keep you updated as the months go by, but just 3 weeks out, I am a whole new person. So yeah, it was the implants. All right. Thanks guys for watching. Talk to you soon.